Hey everyone, do you feel like you don't know what to say in a group discussion? Maybe you have some really good points, but you don't know what to say. You don't know how to start your topic. You don't know how to agree with someone, or politely disagree with someone, or just clarify what you want to say. Well, don't worry, you are at the right place. We are going to talk about phrases. I will give you some really smart, professional phrases so that you sound professional in group discussions. Because guess what? Whether you are in an interview, whether you are in a business meeting or a seminar, you have to be good at group discussions. So let's take a look. Now, there are many elements in a group discussion, right? We have the introduction, for example. We have to agree with some people when they are giving us their opinions, or sometimes we have to sadly disagree. On some other occasions, you might have to suggest. You have to give your suggestions, your opinions. And then again, sometimes you may feel like you haven't understood, in which case you have to ask for clarification. Sometimes you might have to interrupt people, although you have to do it a little politely. And of course, there are other places where you have to give general statements about the topic that you are discussing. No matter what element of group discussion you are going to be talking in, we are going to make sure that you know the right phrases. So let's have a look. As far as introducing your viewpoint is concerned, what do you say when you want to start off with your topic? Let's have a look. You could say, with due respect, I would like to put forward the point that. Okay, so sometimes you have a viewpoint and you have to put it forward. That's your opinion and you have to make it known. But this is a good formal way to start it. You could also say, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to start or begin by saying that and then go ahead with the topic. Of course, this is a more traditional, a more conventional way of starting or giving your viewpoint, but it's still used formally in many places. However, I have another one for you. You could say, I would like to begin by stating my view of the matter. My view, or you could use another word, perspective on this matter. Okay, so these are the different ways you introduce your viewpoint. But you know that sometimes you have to agree with other people, right? It's not always going to be your way. You have to agree with somebody else. So what do you say when you have to do that? I would say, I totally agree with you. I guess that's the right thing to say, and it sounds really nice and polite. However, you could also say, as a matter of fact, you can mention the person's name. He is right by saying that. So let's assume there is one of my friend called Akash, okay, and he's explaining his viewpoint, and I agree with it. So I might want to say something like, as a matter of fact, Akash is completely right by saying that, which means I am agreeing with him. But I have another one for you. You could say, I second what Akash just said. I second means I back him up. Okay, so you back somebody up, which means you support them completely. Okay, that's another way of saying I second what Akash or my friend Niharika said. All right, we'll go to the other one, which says, I have to side with Michelle on this one. Okay, so agreeing basically means that you are taking sides. You are agreeing with this person, but maybe not with this person. So sometimes it's good to state the person's name that you are agreeing with. So I have to side with Michelle on this one. Okay, all right then. Let me see if we can have good polite phrases while disagreeing. Now here's the tricky thing, okay? When it comes to disagreeing with someone, well, you have to be extra polite because no one likes to be told that they are wrong. And when you are disagreeing with someone, you are essentially not buying their opinion. So what can you say? Let's have a look. With due respect, I believe it would not be right to do whatever it is that they have suggested. Now, this phrase is really important because when you say with due respect, it shows that it implies that you are respecting their opinion, but yet disagreeing with it. I would go with something else. I would also say something like, I am afraid I can only partly agree with that. Okay, now when you see the word afraid, it does not mean that you are scared. Okay, this phrase over here is actually in English called a softener. A softener is basically a phrase that you use before you disagree with someone to sound polite. So you say, I'm afraid I can only partly agree with that. Yes, partly agreeing with someone is equal to disagreeing with someone because you don't completely agree with them. Or you could say, I personally feel it wouldn't be okay to do this. Okay, remember, you are giving your personal opinion. So when you are disagreeing with someone, you're just speaking for yourself. So if you are speaking for yourself, you want to say, I personally feel that it wouldn't be okay to do this. Or you could say, though I agree on the broader point, it seems to me that, and then you give a contradictory opinion. Okay, so what happens is sometimes you may agree on, let's say, the main point, but there are some elements of what is being spoken that you feel like you're not very comfortable with, you don't completely agree with. That's when you want to say that you agree with one thing, but you do not agree with the other thing. And that's when you can use this. You can say, though I agree with you on the broader point, it somehow seems to me that this other issue is not quite taken care of. Okay? All right, then let's have a look at what do we say when we are suggesting or giving our own opinions. Now here you have to sound very professional. All of you who are giving interviews, if you are in the group discussion, make sure that the phrases I now share with you, you say them with confidence, okay? Because your opinion really matters. So you want to say something like, my honest opinion would be that. Okay, so you have to use the word honest opinion, which is a way of saying that you have a strong belief in what you're going to say. However, you can also say, to level up with you, I think, okay, so level up is a way to say that based on what you've just said, here is my opinion. Let's look at another one. The way I see it, okay, this is another way to say I personally think, or honestly I feel, or my perspective is. So when you see something, it is your point of view, okay, but you can say this, no problem with that. Or you could say, I am of the opinion that. This is a lot more formal. If you compare it with the other ones, you notice it's a lot more formal. And this is also a good thing to use. Another one, from my perspective, or you could say in my perspective. Some people say in my perspective, some people say from my perspective. Both are absolutely correct. But these phrases, when said with confidence, definitely show that you firmly believe in your opinion. And that shows your professionalism. Let's now have a look at what do you do when you want to ask for clarification. Why do you ask for clarification though? When you are having a group discussion, someone says a certain thing or someone talks about a certain point, and maybe you want to understand that point more clearly before you decide if you agree with them or not. That's when you ask for clarification so that you have no doubts about what they are saying to you. What can you say? I'm sorry, but could you please make it clearer? Because you didn't understand, right? So you want them to make it a little clearer for you. Could you throw some more light on it? Throwing some more light is an idiom which means, can you explain it further so that I understand it a little bit more? Because some people are a little vague. They don't explain things in detail. And when you want them to explain things in detail, it basically means that you want them to throw some light on it. That's a new idiom for you today. Or you could say, please expand your thoughts. Okay, please expand your thoughts. Or you could say, please expand on your thoughts or your opinions, which means give me detailed explanation about what you just said. A really good phrase you want to use. You can also say, do you mind explaining that again? Okay, now this is a very nice, kind way to ask because, some people don't like to be asked the same thing over and over again. But I think if you say this, it sounds very polite, a nice, polite request to ask for clarification. Some people simply say, please enlighten me. This is a little informal, but it's still used in a formal environment. So go ahead and use these. Sometimes, like I said, you have to interrupt people politely. Okay, in a discussion, what happens? There are many people talking, and you might want to be very careful that you don't overtalk someone. A professional person never interrupts. But if you must interrupt, make sure you do it politely. So what can you say if you feel like you are speaking when the other person is saying something? What can you say? Here's what you'll say. You can say, sorry to interrupt, but, and then go ahead with your idea. Or you could say, I would like to add here that. So this is not a really bad way of interrupting. Why? Because you are actually adding an extra point to what someone else said, which means you're actually strengthening what they are saying. You're strengthening their argument, right? They won't be mad at you for interrupting them politely like that. So you can do it. But if you don't want to use this, you can use another one. You can say, it is okay, or is it okay if I add something here? Okay, so here you're actually taking permission. You're being very nice, and you're actually asking for permission to interrupt, which I think is not a bad thing at all. It's very professional. Or you could go ahead with saying, if I may interrupt, I would like to add that. Again, another very formal way and a very polite way of interrupting someone. Do use these if you need to interrupt. So now I'm going to show you some general phrases which can be used in any part of the group discussion. Now let me tell you that general phrases are used when you want to state certain facts at any point of the group discussion, because a discussion can only make meaning if you have some really good facts. So what are these general phrases? Let's take a quick look. In today's world, when you start your phrase with in today's world, you're talking about what is happening today. What is the reality of today's times? So I could say something like, in today's world, several people or several businesses use social media. And based off that statement, I'm going to strengthen my argument. Okay, let's go to something else. We can say, as a matter of fact, when you are stating popular trends, if you want to make your discussion strong, you want to really leverage or take the help of popular trends, popular opinion, or things that are very common. And that's when you can start your statement by saying, as a matter of fact, most people who are healthy are also very mentally fit, right? So you want to state facts, and this is how you do it. You could also have another general phrase by saying, thank you for asking my opinion on it. Now, a lot of people sometimes will ask for your opinion. You don't even have to volunteer to give it by yourself. They will ask for it if you're an expert at a certain topic. That's when you can say, hey, thank you for asking my opinion on it, which means that you are showing gratitude. You are saying thank you for them to give you this chance to showcase your expertise on something. You can also say, maybe mention the person's name and say, hey Akash, what do you think about this? Okay, a lot of times when you are discussing something in a group meeting, it's very common for us to want to have other people confirm with us or buy into our point, right? It's good to always have somebody else support us. That's when you can use a phrase by saying, or a question by saying, what do you think about this? This is my point, but what do you think about this, right? A good way to get people on your side. Or you could say, as maybe you quote somebody, okay? Sometimes you want to quote someone very popular, as Albert Einstein, as so-and-so person once said, and then you can quote them, and based off of that quote, you can actually make a strong argument, right? So I can say, as the famous author said, reading is one of the best ways to learning a language. Well, I'm making my point very clear that language learning is important and you have to do a lot of reading in order to be good at it. All right? So these are the different phrases that you want to use in a group discussion. If you are in the group discussion and no matter what element of the discussion that you are engaged in, use these phrases, use them confidently, and you will sound professional. Okay? Tell me which phrases you are going to use in your next group discussion, whether it is in an interview, whether it is in a social setting, or anywhere else. I'll be back with some more lessons. Until then, keep practicing, and I'll see you soon.